Welcome. This is part 2 of the visual tour. Part 1 was released in a separate video a few days earlier, and the first impressions unboxing video was released a few days before that. So this will conclude our visual tour. We'll go over most of the things that we didn't cover in the previous video. This is not meant to be a comprehensive video, believe it or not, even though it's well over an hour's worth of material. But it is meant to go over all the major functionality and give you a sense of what the device is capable of. So if it turns out there's other areas that you want me to delve deeper into, just let me know in the comments and we can do that. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and head on in to part 2. Okay, our virtual tour continues in the heart of what the Boox Go can do, and that's really the note-taking app. And you see we've got that selected right here. Before we go into what the notebooks look like and what you can do inside a notebook, let's take a look at the UI around that and the options, etc. First off, we'll start up here in the upper left. And you'll notice there is a clock here at the edge. So what the clock does, if you tap on it once, it takes you to your recent notes, which are indicated here. But if you click on it again, you have the ability to either look at recently opened, which is selected, or favorites. We don't have any favorites now, but let's go ahead and get out of that, go back to recently opened. There's a number of ways that you can pick favorites. As we go through the menus, you'll see them. Anytime you see a star, you have the ability to click on that star, like so, and then that becomes a favorite. So now if we go ahead and click on this, go to favorites, that file will show up. If we click on the notebook next to the star, then what we get is basically your standard view. This is the view you'll first see when you come in to the note-taking app. And basically any notebooks or text files that you have here will be indicated. Notebooks have page numbers in the lower corner, and then text files have the word text in the lower corner. The little icon here indicates whether it's saved to the cloud. We'll get to that in a second. And again, we just talked about the stars. The number represents the number of pages in the notebook. And of course, you also see the title and the date that the notebook was created. There's also an option up here, and I'm actually quite frankly not aware of what this is. This is called Associate Notes. I don't have any. I don't actually know what goes here. I looked this up in the manual. There was no reference to it. So if anybody knows what these are, please let me know in the comments. I would appreciate it. Let's go back to the standard view here for a second. Okay, let's move on then to these icons in the upper right. Now we'll start off with this little cloud icon, and that's an icon that you can use to initiate syncing any of your files into the Boox cloud server. This doesn't work for any other services that you're connected with. For example, I'm connected with a Google Drive. Google Drive will back up differently, and we'll talk about that. But if you've got the Boox Drive, you can initiate your sync by pressing on that cloud. And then you've got the search option. The search option is really powerful. Let's take a look at that because there's a lot of options there. So you can see that you can look, and this is between all files, at the title, the handwriting, and that includes cursive, text, to any tags that are created, and you can look through all folders. So for example, I'm going to look for the word hello and make sure handwriting is selected. And we're going to go ahead and initiate that search. It's going to look through all the files. Handwriting search does tend to take longer than the other searches. So for example, if we just searched on tags or we just searched on titles, then the search would be really quick. The handwriting does slow it down, but that's the cost. The benefit of it is that you have more powerful things that you can search for. So we've already gotten one return. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. It tells you that it's on page 2 of the notes Go 10 notes. So let's go ahead and select that. And you can see that the word hello was written in cursive. I did not do any type of conversion to that word. The system automatically converts it when it does the search, and that's partly the reason why the search takes so long, but again, it's one of the reasons that makes it so powerful. Let's go ahead and back out. And in fact, we will get out of the screen. And let's go ahead and go over to this hamburger icon. So this is where we have the option of creating a new folder. So files are created over here, and folders are created in this hamburger. We'll go ahead and select that. And as you can see, it's just simply a matter of naming your folder. We'll just call it folder, clicking OK. And there it is. Let's keep going down those options. There's an options section here. A lot of options. I won't go through all of them, but I do want to draw your attention to this down below, which is automatically export as PDF after exiting a notepad. What that means, and again, we're under the options window, is that when you leave a document, it will save it as a PDF on the device. You'll be able to go actually into your library and see it. So let's take a look at that. So you can see here, this GoTens Note PDF file is when I had that setting on and had exited this notebook, it created this PDF file. So we'll go back. So that's what you can find under options. And of course, there's a lot of other things here, but we won't go over all of that detail. Then you have sync settings, and this is where you can have your Onyx Cloud account indicated there, whether you want to sync all notes or if you want to do manual, which would be by turning that off. There are cases where you are using a service. So again, I'm using Google Drive as an example, and you don't have Wi-Fi on. When you exit a notebook without Wi-Fi being on, it won't back up. So this setting here makes sure that when you exit a notepad, even if you have Wi-Fi off, it will turn it on in order for that backup to occur. You can see down below, there's also options of what you want to export to. So when I export to Google Drive, I'm exporting as this vector-based PDF, which it notes here is editable. The cost of that is the file will be larger than, say, the bitmap PDF, which will have a smaller file size, but will not be editable. And then the final option is a .note file, which is basically just saving the book's format onto whatever drive that you're choosing to sync to. The obvious flaw with that, or the thing that you need to consider, is that while your files will be backed up, they will not be viewable. PDFs are viewable, but these files are not unless you're using Boox software. So those are your basic sync settings. If we keep going, there's this manage notes where you can manage things in bulk. So as you can see, you can select any combination of the notes, and you've got a number of things. You can merge them into one document. You can export them. You can initiate a sync, move them, or delete them, all with this option of manage notes. There's different ways of filtering, and those are the options available. It's pretty straightforward, so we'll keep moving on. And then this next one refers to what it looks like visually, your inventory of notes. So let's move on now to detailed mode. And it looks like that. So you can put more notebooks on the screen. And even more if you go into list mode. Here's another option again where you can create favorites. Let's go back then to the cover mode, and that's where we started. Last thing I want to highlight is that there is a recycle bin. So if you delete a notebook, it doesn't necessarily go away. It goes into the recycle bin. In the recycle bin, you then have the option of going in there and then deciding what you want to do with those files. You could bring them back. You could actually permanently delete them, and what have you. Okay, so that's the basic overview of the UI. Now, one more aspect before we start creating a note. All these documents, if you long press them, brings up different options. So we're going to go ahead and long press on the folder. And then we're going to get a couple options here. One is we can do locking the folder, and that would be a numeric code. We can move the folder, rename it, delete it, and even put a custom cover onto the folder. Let's go ahead and do that just for fun. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and imported using the Bookstrap this PNG file, and I'm going to go ahead and just select it, and now it becomes what the folder design looks like. If we long press any of the notes, we also have options, a little few more. We have the options to lock just like before, delete, move, copy, which is new, rename, which is the same. You can export, and you can either remove or create a favorite. So I removed it. So next time you can create it as a favorite. Some sync options up here as well. We'll start with Onyx Sync. And this is pretty straightforward. Again, it shows your account and then whether it's an automatic sync or not. And then you can initiate a manual sync down here or go to your Onyx account. And then for other sync, then this is just indicating the other drives. That's all done in the settings, but I'm currently connected to the Google Drive. Okay, let's exit out of that. All right, let's now go into actually creating a notebook. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this Create Notepad. And there's two options. You can either do handwriting or you can do text. We're going to start with handwriting. So the first thing you can do is you can name your notepad. You can either accept this name or you can exit out and click on it again, and then your keyboard comes up. So we'll just call this Hi, and then we'll get rid of the keyboard. Then you have the option of setting your templates, and there's a number of templates. So this is the general templates. This is page 1. This is page 2. We can go to work. Those are the selections there. Study. And finally, other. There are custom templates, and these are templates that you would bring onto the device yourself. So you can either create a PNG or a PDF file, and then you put it into the Note Template folder on this device. My recommendation is that you create a PDF template if you're interested in doing that. And simply all you need to do is basically, you could, for example, open up a Word document on a computer, create the template just the way that you want it, and then save it as a PDF file. You load it here, and it becomes available to you as a template. What's really cool is if you have multiple pages, let's say that you create this Word document, it's 5 pages long, you save it as a PDF, then you set it as your template in a new notebook. Those 5 pages will be the first 5 pages that will appear in your notebook. So, page 1 will be page 1 of your notebook, page 2 of your PDF will be page 2, etc. So it's pretty cool. Then you just go ahead and click on OK. Okay, now we're inside a notebook, and let's go ahead and walk through all the features that are available, or at least most of the features that are available to you. And there's quite a bit here. We're actually kind of in an odd manner. I'm going to go ahead and start at the bottom here, and we'll work our way up and then over. So we're going to start here at the Customize Toolbar. And if you click on that, there's a couple options here. The first option is you can decide what you want on the toolbar. So right now the toolbar is perfectly full, but there are other options I can put in there. So for example, instead of this plus page, I can tap on it like so. It goes down below, and then I can put the negative page up there instead. And I can hold on to this and move it over and change the order. So a lot of customization here that's available. In addition to that, I can always go back to my defaults by clicking on this reset button, like so. And then finally, what's really cool is you have this ability to either turn on or off the icon text on the toolbar. So let's go ahead and turn that on. And let's go back. And now you can see that there's the name of the icon, as long as it fits anyway, here on the side. Now I actually think it looks cleaner and much better without that. So we're going to go ahead and go back in, and we're going to turn that off. Let's take a second look at that. Much better, a much cleaner look. And you can remove things. So instead of having this bar completely filled in, much like the overall UI, you can take things off, and so that it's a little less cluttered, if that's something that you're interested in. Okay, let's keep going up the chain. Here we have share and export, and I'll show you those options there. So first off, this is currently a document that has 7 or actually 8 pages in it. And so you can select whatever combination. We'll go ahead and select them all. And then you can select this button to actually do the exporting. And this is just navigating if you have multiple pages, and this changes the view. So for example, we could go to this view, and now it's over 2 pages, or you can go as far as this view, which is the most complicated with most pages on it. Let's go ahead and click on this export button. And then these are your options. You can rename the book if you wanted to. You can decide what format, and we've talked about that already. So I won't go any further there. You can talk about if you just want all layers or just the visible ones. We'll get to that when we get to layers. And then you can indicate the size of the document. You have the ability to either create a QR code to be able to download that document on another device. You can share. There's a lot of options, and that will actually extend as you have more apps downloaded. So that takes advantage of what apps you have and adds those to your options. And we'll go ahead and click on that just to see what's available now. You can see it's exporting as a PDF file, and then it will ask how we want to send it. And here there's a few options that are available. Let's go ahead and click out of that. Let's go back into export and just go to this export option. We'll say OK, and this just creates a PDF file that it saves onto the device. And you can see the path there. OK, let's back out of this. All right. Then there's a search, very similar to the search functionality we saw before, but this search will be limited within the notebook. Let's take a look at those options. So you can search thumbnails, you can search tags, and you can search what they call scribbles. And there are a number of options for that, including icons that you can create, and of course handwriting and text as before. Now I've done a video on this. The video was called something to the effect of Search and e-ink together again. That might not be exactly right, but I go in a lot of depth about this search functionality. So if you really want to understand, for example, how these symbols work and how tags work in terms of search, I would go to that video, and I'll put a link of that video into the description below. We're covering a lot of territory on this video, so I think we're going to go ahead and not go into that here. Let's go ahead and back out. Okay, this is a sync button. It's exactly what you think it is, but of course it's only referring to syncing this particular workbook. You have customized gesture settings. So if you're finding there's issues where you're accidentally triggering a certain gesture, you have the ability to turn that off, whether it's side gestures, bottom gestures, system bar gestures, pinch to zoom, dragging the page, or long press. Those are all things you can toggle on or off. And if you click on this little information button, it tells you details about all of those options. You have the ability to zoom in, which is what this plus stands for. And as you click on it, you have a number of options, and you get this window over here, which helps to understand the total canvas size versus what is visible. So for example, let's go ahead and zoom in, and we'll do that a few times. And you can see now, this intersection, the highlighted section, is what's visible here, and then the rest of the notebook is on the outside. So I'm going to drag this over, and we'll see this page number. There we go. So now we see the page 1, and that's right there. We're going to go ahead and go back by fitting the canvas. And now we're back to a normal page. So a lot of options there for zooming in. This is for adding pages. So whatever page you're on, it will add a next page over. So you can be at the beginning, middle, or end of a notebook, and it will add that page in the next page. So if I added this now, it would be page 2. You have your Lasso tool now. Let's go ahead and click on that. And there's 2 versions of the Lasso tool. So if I click on it again, you can see either Smart Lasso or Free Lasso. Now, a Smart Lasso basically is something where if you only circle part of the word, it will basically expand it to the entire word. So let me do that with saying, oops, let's turn on the pen. Okay, so now I'm going to go into Smart Lasso, which is actually what I was already on. And I'm not going to encapsulate the entire word. I'm only going to do part of the word. The Smart Lasso then understands, oh, you meant the entire thing. And that's what that does specifically. There's a couple options here. These circles on the four sides basically allow you to stretch in whatever direction you choose. The square allows you to expand proportionately. The little kind of recycle or circle arrow there allows you to rotate, like so. And then the AI button is going to convert that to text, although I'm not sure it's going to do it while it's on its side. Let's give it a try. No. Let's try that again. Ooh, not a very good writing job on my part, but let's see if we can figure it out. Yeah, pretty good. And I would say that's more than acceptable because my O was terrible. All right, now, when you use a free lasso, we'll just create the word hello again. Just don't worry about how poor that was written. If I click on free lasso, then it's different. It literally will only select that which I select. So I'm going to go ahead and go right in the middle of the word. And you can see it's only going to select part of that. Now, another thing you can do is you can drag the entire thing. So I'm going to go ahead and hold this down, and I'm going to split this word apart. And then tap on it, and there you go. Now, I do want to point something out. Regardless of what lasso you use, you have options that will appear up above as a result of circling it. Let's walk through that. So the first thing you have is you can do a tag. We'll get back to that in a second. You can create a link. You can undo or redo, change the colors, cut, copy, paste, and then you've got a few more options over here in terms of you can flip it or delete. But let's talk about the tag. So if I click on the tag, like so, it'll recognize it, so it'll do an OCR conversion. I can either choose to accept that, or I can X out to clear it and then type in whatever I want. I'm okay with he. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So now I have this tag, and you can tell it's a tag because it's kind of highlighted and shaded there. Now what that allows me to do then is I can search on that tag. So I'm going to go ahead and go into search. We're going to go over to tags. And there is all your tags that you've created will be up there. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And it'll do the search, and then there you go. And again, I go into more depth on tags in the other video, but that's the basics of how it works. All right, we do have the ability to create links, like so. There's a number of things you can do. You can actually create a recording that would exist here. Let's go ahead and do that. Hey, Jeff, this is my recording. And there it is, and I can play it, and it will repeat. Let's go ahead and do that. Hey, Jeff, this is my recording. All right, pretty straightforward. Other links as well. You can link to an image, an attachment, other notes, other files, a website, and you can even pop in a little timestamp. And there's a number of options for that. Let's go ahead and pick this guy. Fantastic. I'll go ahead and drag that up. There you go. Okay. Above the links is the AI. If you click on that, there's a number of things that it can do. And again, you can click on this little button over here to get a description of it. There's shape perfection, lasso recognition, scribbling erase, and then finally text recognition. And if you click on that, it's actually going through and doing all 8 pages of the document here. So let's go ahead and try some of these things out. We'll start with shape recognition. So I'm going to create a really poor circle. I'm going to hold it, and I've got a nice circle. That's what shape recognition can do for you. Let's do strike through erase. So I'm going to go ahead and write something here. And now I want to erase it, but I don't want to go all the way up here, select erase, erase it, have to select the pen. I want to do it as quickly as possible. And there you go. One of the problems with strike erase is it will leave artifacts, particularly if you're going over multiple words and there's little bitty strokes that aren't covered. So that is one limitation, but it is a convenience when it's used properly. What else? Oh yes, lasso recognition. Okay, so with lasso recognition, I can circle something and it will treat it as if I was using the lasso. So I'm actually on the pen, but I want to circle this. It identifies that, and I want to delete it. So I'm going to go up here, go more, delete, and there you go. So that's the other cool feature. We already caught a glimpse of the text box. We'll go ahead and click on that. And basically it's just this box that comes up. You have a number of what you call standard formatting options, including the orientation. And then you've got your keyboard down below. Now I do want to share a couple things about this keyboard that's pretty cool. Obviously we have our standard typing keyboard here. We'll just say hi. But we also have the ability to write what we want to have converted as text. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that and say hello there. And it's going to convert it. And it did a great job because that was not particularly good on my part. So let's go ahead. And then actually let's go back into that box. There's also the ability to do audio. Hey, let's just keep writing. And there it goes. So a lot of options for inputting into this text box. And then you have other, formatting options as well. So pretty cool. Let's go ahead and keep moving up the chain here. We've got this fill option. So we're going to click on this. Let's click on it again. So those are your color options. Of course, they're in grayscale. However, you notice that it says, WT for white, red, green. Can't see it, but I believe that's blue. And those colors actually would appear if you exported. So if I exported, again, to Google Drive, and I filled this in with green, like so, then that would show up as green, even though it shows up as black here. This is shapes. So if I click on this, and I click on it again, lots of options, different types of shapes, different types of styles of the lines, your colors, and your thickness is all there. Now earlier we zoomed into the document. You can in fact manipulate the canvas. Right now the canvas is what would be considered 1 by 1, meaning the entire canvas is within view. And you can see that on the icon there. But if you click on this, there are other options. You can go 1 by 1, which is the default, 1 by 2, which extends the canvas this way, 2 by 1, which extends the canvas that way, or 2 by 2. And then you can do it custom as well. So there's a lot of ways. If you didn't want to be limited to this one size of the canvas, and yes, you can keep creating pages, but if you wanted to basically do like mind maps, for example, and you wanted to be able to zoom in and zoom out of them, this extended canvas is what allows you to do that. Let's talk layers. Now over here, I have the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. These numbers actually exist on multiple layers. They don't exist on the same layer. Right now, we're on layer 1, and I numbered 1 to 1, so this is the layer that's active. In other words, if I use scribble erase, I'll have to get off the line to do that. If I use scribble erase, it goes away. But what if I tried to do it on 2? Nothing. And that's because 2 is on a totally separate layer. Let's go ahead and get rid of that scribble. If we click on this, we can see the 5 layers, and there's a maximum of 5. When you start out a notebook, you'll start out with your template, and you'll start out with layer number 1. So you have the ability to add in 4 more. And again, this one highlighted is the one that we're on. You can move layers. So for example, I can take layer 2, and I can move it up 1. And so on. If I select this button, there are a number of options. I can either show, hide, lock, or delete it. I can also stop showing it by clicking on the eye. So let's stop showing layer 5. You see that goes away. The layer still exists. You just can't see it with that eye in the closed option. Now, why would you want to do layers? Well, there's probably a number of reasons. Probably the best one I can think of is sketching. Maybe you're sketching something, a lot of complexity, a lot of depth, and you don't want to risk erasing things that you've already created. So you create one layer, you're happy with that, you start on the next layer, and it's a way of protecting the stuff that you've done previously. So that's just one example. Now the last button we have, until we get to the top here, is templates. And if we click on that, we return to a similar screen that we saw when we created the notebook to begin with. And these are the templates. Same selection of templates are available. You can decide whether you just want to change your current template page or all in the notebook. And then you can also decide going forward, if you create a new page, what will happen. Do you use your last used template, or is it a blank template? There's a couple options over here. And again, these are very similar to some things we saw when we created the notebook. Let's go ahead and back out. Okay, so that takes us to the top corner. And this is a way of basically being able to collapse these UI bars to have a smaller presence and more canvas available to you. So if I go ahead and tap on that, it collapses it into this format, which is a subset of what we had seen before. It is customizable. If we click on this button and we click on Customize, you can see there's a lot of options available. You can move any of these up by simply tapping on it, similar to what we saw before, and you do have some influence in terms of the order of items. You can always go back to the original by clicking on Reset. You can have it go either horizontal or vertical. You can also change the size. So if we select this and we go, say, to 50%, you can see it becomes quite small. And conversely, we can go in there and go that to 150%, and it's going to be quite a bit larger, as we can see there. It's because we're going to go ahead and go back to 50% or 100% rather. The last option we have is this thing where we can show an indicator if the toolbar is collapsed. And this is actually the default. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So if I click on this little option here, it collapses the bar here on the side, and you can see the tab there. So to bring it back, I just need to click on the tab, and there you go. Now if I go ahead and go back into Customize, and we go ahead and turn that off, then there won't be a tag at all. And it disappears, but it's still there. But in this mode, note that you have access to the entire canvas. You want to bring that back, you just swipe from the side, and there you go. The one downer from my perspective about this format, it does obviously open up more of the canvas, which is nice, but you don't have the ability to see the file name. To do that, you're going to have to expand back to the normal UI. So just one thing to consider. Now, as we go along the top, you have this kind of less than sign here. If you click on that, it will take you out of the notebook, and in doing so, it will save the notebook at the same time. However, I should point out that if you use certain gestures, for example, I have swipe gestures to go back by swiping in, or I have swipe gestures to go to the home screen by swiping up in the center, both of those will take you out of the notebook and will also save the notebook at the same time. So any way you get out of the notebook is going to save it. You don't have to press the less than sign, but that is one option. You have the name of the notebook here, and you can click on that and change the notebook if you like. There are 5 presets available. I've selected all different 5 pen types here, and they all basically can be set with the same options. If I double click on that, you've got the different types of pens that are available, the different grayscale colors or colors, again, if you export it, and then your line width. You have, by default, at least 1 preset and the ability to create 3 more. And of course, if you create all 5, then that's the maximum. We'll go into looking at what those brush strokes look like in just a second, but let's finish off the remainder of the bar. So we've got the eraser function here, and there's a number of things to this. So if I click it on twice, I can either have a lasso eraser, which means I can circle what I want to have erased, and everything within that circle will go away. I have a stroke eraser, which means, whatever I write on will go away, literally. And then there's this kind of mobile eraser, which is basically gonna basically create a stroke as large as whatever you set it to. So let's kind of set it a little bit higher here, and then we'll just go through like that. So that's the mobile eraser in action. In addition to that, you can erase a current layer. In this case, it would erase layer 1, which we're on, or it can erase all layers if you just want to clear the slate. Then you've got your undo and redo, pretty straightforward. And here's your navigation buttons. You can click on this button to advance through the pages. And if you're on the very last page, clicking on this button will create a new page. Or you can click on these numbers, and then you get to this shortcut that has, a page. If you have more than 6, you can click on this and see the remaining pages, etc. Or you can also look at any tags in the file. In this case, there are none. So that, in a nutshell, is all the functionality in the notebook. Let's take a quick look at those pen styles just to see what that looks like. Okay, here we see the examples of the 5 pen styles in action, the ballpoint pen, the brush pen, pencil, and marker. In this case, I set them all to 8-point, except the marker, which is at 20. I've done some tests here around pressure sensitivity. The ball pen, the marker, doesn't have any real sensitivity. There's some sensitivity in the brush pen. You can actually see it better with the B and the P. But the pen and pencil all have, you can see lighter strokes, darker, lighter, and darker. Same with the pencil, which is basically showing that there is pressure sensitivity on those. In addition, with the pencil, you have the additional option, and I'll go ahead and show that here, of having a different texture. The default one is there. So those are your brush styles. Now, we're not quite done with notes yet. Just one more thing I want to show you. We're going to go back to creating a notepad. And if I select that, remember there's another option called text. So let's go ahead and select that. Same situation where you can go ahead and name it whatever you'd like. You have the option of going blank, but there's other templates as well. A to-do list. You have a few kind of work report templates and this study template. Let's go ahead and go into that to-do list and click on OK. And you can see here there's a lot of formatting options. Some of those very similar to what we saw with the notebook. Some of those are a little bit more specific formatting, like spacing and alignment. You do have this ability to create checklists, and this will look familiar to Remarkable users. We've got examples here, and if I check on them, not only does it check the box, but it strikes it out as well. If we go over to AI tools, we do have strike through erase, which we saw in the notes, but you also have mark recognition and line break that are described here. We're actually going to talk about mark recognition in the Reader app, but line break is obviously a way where you can draw a stroke, split a word, and there's an example of what that would look like. Okay, that is going to do it. We can go into depth here as well, but I think we've gone over a lot already, but there's just even more stuff you can have with text options, and I just wanted to show that off briefly. Okay, so our attention turns to the Reader app, and I have to be honest, we are not going to go through nearly as detailed of an overview of this app as we did with the Notebook app. And the primary reason why we're not going to do that is that this application is so complicated and can do so many things that really could be its own hour-long video. So this is really just going to be a survey to get familiar with what's available. So I'll just point out that we are in the library application, and any documents that you have that the reader can read will be located here. I've got 3 types, for example. I've got an EPUB, I've got a PDF, I have a CBR. All of these can be handled by the Reader app and more. And if you wanted to see the full list of documents that can be handled, those are on the Boox website. Let's talk about the UI a little bit. In a very similar look, as we noted with the note-taking app, you do have your recent files here. And of course, if you click that, you can click on favorites as well. Exactly the same as what we saw before. Your entire library is here. This cloud is a little different. If you're connected to any cloud services, in my case, I've got Google Drive, then if you click on this, it will take you to Google Drive, and you can see the folders and files there, and then you can download those onto the device. So that is available to you. Let's go ahead and go back over to the bookshelf. Now, there's documents, and then there's bookshelves, and a bookshelf is simply like a folder. So if we go ahead and long press on the bookshelf, you notice that we have the ability to put on a custom cover, just like a folder. If you hold down any one of these documents, you have a number of options available and a lot of the sync options that we saw before as well. We do have search functionality here, but the search functionality really is just about the headers of the document. It doesn't search the documents itself, at least not to my knowledge. If you click on this item here, you come up with a reading statistic, so kind of fun. Go ahead and get out of that. And then finally, in this hamburger, you've got a number of options. You can create a new bookshelf, just like the one we have there. You can manage the library, similar to what we saw before. You can select any number of documents and then perform these features on them. We'll go ahead and cancel that. If we go over here again, we do have the ability to filter and sort, very similar, but a couple different options than we saw with the notebooks. Let's keep going. We can go to detailed mode, which looks like that. Again, there's a place where you could select favorites if you're so inclined. We can go into list mode. And finally, we can return back to cover mode. We've got some library settings down here, and not too complicated. Let's go ahead and back out of that. All right, now we're not going to go into every file type. I'm just going to go ahead and go into an EPUB. This one's called Picturesque London, and interestingly enough, I went ahead and downloaded it from the store. It was free. It's from Project Gutenberg, so it's nice that they include it. And so let's go ahead and load it. Okay, now we're in the reader itself. Now let's go ahead and we're just going to look at what's available on the screen. So first off, you'll notice there's this little icon in the upper right corner, and this is quite simply your bookmark icon. So if you select a bookmark, it will look like that, and to deselect, it will look like that. You have this system tray down below, and there's just a handful of things that you can do. I'm going to take it from the bottom up. So we click on that button, there are settings, and we've seen this format before, although not this breadth of options. You can see there's 5 rows here, and these are all shortcuts to things we're going to see in other system settings shortly. Very similar. We can reset to the original, we can do vertical or horizontal, we can change the size, and so on. So almost identical to what we saw with the note-taking app, so we won't go any further there. You can advance pages either or return. Here we have, this is basically a shortcut into settings. We'll come back to that. Here we have some different AI options. So we see the familiar shape perfection, we see the familiar scribbling erase, but now there's a couple mark functions, circle mark and scribbling mark. We'll take a look at that. Then you have double tap recognition. That's for handwriting, so we'll take a look at that. And then you have the ability to turn pages with stylus. Okay, so we got 3 things we want to look at. Let's go ahead and do that. So we'll first start by underline, like so, and the AI will recognize it, and now I have the ability to format the underline, to highlight the section or black it out, and then there's some other editing options as well. Okay, I can also delete it, which is what I'm going to choose to do. I can get to the same place by circling it. And there we are. Okay, last one is double tap, and let me quickly, actually let's see if I can write now. Yep, I'm going to write hi. I can double tap that, and then it's going to do the OCR, and there we go. I wasn't sure for a second there, it kind of left me hanging, but that's what the double tap feature does. We do have the ability to alter the gesture controls, again, very similar to what we've seen before. And then we have the ability to, well, before we get to this, let's go ahead, I can go ahead and moor this off to the side to create that tab, or I can bring it back. And we did have the option to go tabless here as well. Now, I'm going to go ahead and click on the little pen, and it's going to create another tray. This is a little confusing because this icon, which previously created a tab, just returns you back to this tray. So that's kind of an unfortunate inconsistency there. but just something to be aware of. Here you do have the option of changing your pen styles. And again, you have 5 brushes, so almost exact to what we saw in the Notebook app. What's different though is in the Notebook app, I had all 5 presets set, and here I don't. I only have the default one, plus the ability to create more. So that's what that looks like. We have the ability to create shapes. We've seen that before. I'll go ahead and click on that just to show you. Clicking on it again. There we are. Same options. Same with erase, undo, redo. You can save it. The lasso options, the fill options, the text options, and we have some settings that we can adjust here as well. So far, relatively consistent with the note-taking app with just a handful of features specific to this device. Let's go ahead and go back to the original Trey. Let's go a little bit deeper though. We touched on this hamburger earlier, but we could have pressed the center of the screen and then this comes up. So a few things to note. You can get out of the document here. You can open a document here. There's your sync option, again with the book services. There's gestures, so another way of going into that. There's notes, which again just goes into that tray. Get rid of that. Okay, Smart Scribe, we've seen this already. Nothing new there. And then you can search, and there's the functionality there. So all pretty standard so far. Let's go ahead and go on the More button. You can refresh. Here are the settings. And there's just a number of settings here, which I'm just not going to go into just for the sake of some sense of brevity. Let's go ahead and get out of this. And you'll notice there's one more item to call out, which is the dictionary. You can click on that, and then you can search for a word here. Okay. Now we've got the side tray here. We had the pen tray when we brought that up, and then we have the options up above. We have even more options down below. We'll start from the very left, which is the contents page. And there are a number of things here. We'll start over here with the table of contents. This would be the table of contents that's inherent in the document itself. So if the document doesn't have a table of contents, this would be blank. But in this case, it does. And you can see we can even expand it like so. And clicking on these things will return us to that section of the book. Okay, if we go back to contents, we move over, we can see anything we bookmarked will be located. Again, I can click on that to go there. Any type of annotations, non-writing, I can find here. Let's go ahead and go to one of those. Okay, and that's referring to the line there. And then finally, we have the ability to look at scribbled notes, and you can see a preview. We'll go here, for example, and you can see, hi there. So that's basically the table of contents overall. You do have a progress bar, which is the default that comes up when you select this. This is the length of the book, so you can advance pages simply by moving the bar. You can reverse by clicking on undo. You have audio TTS options. You can do auto page turn. I'm not sure why you'd want to do that, but you can have it change on regular intervals. And so on. If we go to style, there are a number of options where if you don't like how it looks, you can change the font size. Let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. See, it becomes huge. You can make it bolder. You can even enhance the text more somehow. So a lot of options. If the document doesn't look particularly good on the screen, you can go through and make those changes. And you even have some more options. You have some options around the contrast of different objects in the book, and then you have different views that you can do, some of which is just the current document. You can have 2 documents side by side. You can have a document and handwritten notes, and so on. You can decide whether you want that to go horizontal or vertical and what the orientation of that will be. Interestingly enough, under the split view is the AI option. This is different than AI as we've talked about it so far in this video. So far, it's just been little tools that you have. This is different. If we click on this, then you can see that you can do different types of queries using the Azure GPT-3 that we saw in the AI app. So that is available to you if you are interested. So that is just let's go ahead and get rid of that by swiping up. That is just a basic overview of what the reading app can do. Again, a very complicated app. Let's go ahead and go into a comic book document just to kind of see what that's like. Here we go. Now this is a color document, so it's not going to translate necessarily very well, but I can tap through the document. I don't want to OCR it, so let's keep going. And this is what it looks like. Let's do a little pinch to zoom here. I do want to enable that. Thank you. Like so. And so on. Let's go ahead and get out of this and just an observation. So as complex as this app is, and it can be very overwhelming, and I think there are some criticisms of this app, frankly. But nevertheless, you can download a book. Here I have, for example, a Frankenstein. I can click on it. Now I've done a little bit of manipulation already just to get the font to the right size that I want. But you don't have to do that. If it comes out and it's exactly the way you like it, then you just click and you move forward through the document and you can read accordingly. So one of the things to keep in mind is, yes, there's a ton of complexity available in this app, but that complexity, you don't necessarily have to engage with it. You can engage with it if the document doesn't read very well, and there's things you want to do to kind of change that. But if you're just someone that I just want to load a document, it looks fine, and read it, that option's available, and I think that actually is makes the Reader app not quite as intimidating as it otherwise would be. So just something to keep in mind. There's more features available in here. I just did a really quick summary, and I really didn't cover everything, but I think for this video, we've covered enough. All right. Okay, finally, that concludes our virtual tour. I hope you found it informative or were able to get quickly to the information that you were looking for. If there's anything that seemed to be missing or any questions about the stuff that we've covered, please put that in the comments. Be sure to subscribe. In the Go series, we have 2 more videos coming. We've got the one around the battery life and the testing around that. And then plus other miscellaneous things like how a keyboard works with the device and that sort of thing. And then finally, the last video is going to be the full review. It's really coming together in my mind at this point. So that should come out in about 2 weeks. So if you subscribe, you'll be right on top of it once that gets released. Okay, thank you very much, and I hope you have a great day.